Hi everybody, it's Mr. Burke again, and today I'm going to keep reading from Muggie Maggie. I'm so excited to see where the story goes, and hopefully Maggie has learned her lesson that she needs to start writing cursive. She got a really mean nickname because she didn't close her A's, and now everyone is calling her Muggie Maggie. It's not right of them to call her that, but we'll see if she starts taking the cursive lessons a little more seriously. Here we go. Chapter 5. Later that week, Mr. Schultz brought Maggie a present from Ms. Madden, a ballpoint pen that wrote in either red or blue ink. Just what I've always wanted. Maggie was filled with love for Ms. Madden, the one grown-up who, Maggie felt, did not pick on her. Can I thank her on the computer? Asked Maggie, testing her father. You may not. The computer is off limits. Mr. Schultz was annoyingly cheerful. Use your new pen. Maggie was not surprised. Her father always meant what he said. She went to her room and, with Kisser resting his nose on her foot, went to work. Her printing was not as neat as it once had been because she was out of practice. She wrote one letter in blue, the next in red, over and over. There's Dad being annoyingly cheerful. And there's that letter in red and blue. It says, Dear Ms. Madden, thank you for the pen. I like it. Love, Maggie. After a moment's thought, she added, Sorry, sloggy. Sorry, so sloggy. She used the same S for all three words. There. Maggie, pleased with her work, folded the letter and sealed it in an envelope, printed Ms. Madden on the front, and slipped it into her father's briefcase with the virtuous feeling of having done what was expected of her. The next evening, Mr. Schultz brought home an envelope for Maggie, who tore it open. The note, as she had expected, was from Ms. Madden, and was neatly typed, except for one consonant. It read, Dear Maggie, if you are really sorry so sloggy, or did you mean sloppy, why didn't you copy your letter over? Love, Hilda Madden. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. She felt so ashamed. Now even Ms. Madden, along with everyone else, was picking on her. Mrs. Schultz, seeing Maggie's tears, asked to read the note. Then she said gently, Well, Angel Face, why didn't you do your letter over? Maggie sniffed. I thought Miss Madden would understand. Maggie's father took his turn at reading the embarrassing note. Of course, Miss Madden wouldn't understand, he said. Miss Madden is a secretary who is always neat and accurate. Well, I don't want to be a secretary, said Maggie, thinking of several neat, accurate girls in the third grade. I'm going to be an astronaut or a meter maid. Good for you, Goldilocks, said her father, and he rumpled her hair. We're on to chapter 6 now. That was a short chapter. One morning, Maggie noticed Mrs. Leeper whispering with other teachers in the hall. They glanced at Maggie, who scrunched down, trying to look invisible so they wouldn't talk about her. When class started, Mrs. Leeper said, Boys and girls, let's have a happy teacher today. She said that so often, no one paid any attention. Then she pointed to words she had written on the chalkboard. Mouth of September, Mice Day. Did you hear that? Mouth of September, Mice Day. The words made the class laugh, but Maggie did not see anything funny. Mrs. Leeper said, Maggie, can you tell us what is wrong with these words? That was the moment when Maggie discovered she could not read cursive. She shook her head while others, eager to point out errors, waved their hands. In this little segment up here, right? Mouth of September, That U needs to be flipped over to be an N. And mice day, there's one too many humps there. It needs to be one less to be an N. Nice day, right? Later in the day, Mrs. Leeper announced, "Class, we need a message monitor. Who wants to be our message monitor?" Even though she did not expect to be chosen because she was not a person who made Mrs. Leeper happy, Maggie raised her hand. So did the rest of the class, except Kirby, who never wanted to be a monitor for anything, and who, at the moment, was under the table. "Maggie, you may be our message monitor," said Mrs. Leeper. "She means Muggie," whispered Kirby, coming up from under the table, where he had been figuring out how the legs were fastened to the top. "Me?" said Maggie. "Yes, you," said Mrs. Leeper with a happy smile. "And here is a note for you to take to Mr. Galloway." She handed Maggie an envelope. "Please wait for an answer." Maggie lost no time in escaping to the freedom of the hall, where no one supervised her. The envelope was not sealed. Peeking was cheating, Maggie told herself. Bravely and honestly, Maggie carried the note halfway to the principal's office. Oh no, what's she gonna do? She stopped and thought, one peek wouldn't hurt, not if it's quick. If the envelope was not sealed, it must be all right to look inside. She might have guessed cursive writing. Maggie could not figure out the note, which read, "When is this girl ever going to decide to write cursive?" They're talking about Maggie in the note. What do you think the teacher's up to? Why do you think she chose Maggie for this job? Maggie recognized the question mark and decided Mrs. Leeper was probably asking for more worksheets or something equally boring. "Hello there, Maggie," said the principal when she held out the note. While Maggie waited, Mr. Galloway wrote a short answer, which he put in the same envelope. He crossed out his name and wrote Mrs. Leeper's name in its place. The school could not afford to waste envelopes. "Take this to your teacher," he said with a big smile, "and thank you, Maggie." "I won't look, I won't look," Maggie told herself. What would be the use when the note was written in cursive? Maggie walked more and more slowly. Was it wrong to look at something she could not read? Of course not, Maggie decided, and she slipped the note out of the envelope. Mr. Galloway's cursive was not as neat as Mrs. Leeper's, which did not seem right to Maggie. A principal's writing should be better than a teacher's. Maggie will decide to read and write cursive sooner or later. It looks like later. Maggie studied Mr. Galloway's loops and curves until one word jumped out at her. There she is, studying that note that she probably shouldn't be looking at. Maggie, that's the word she noticed. She was shocked. What was Mr. Galloway saying about her? Maggie felt her cheeks turn red. Quickly, she replaced the note and hurried to her classroom as if she was carrying something hot. Mrs. Leeper gave her a sharp look and said, "Thank you, Maggie," before she read what the principal had written. Then she smiled, once more a happy teacher. Suddenly, Maggie found cursive interesting. How could she read people's letters if she could not read cursive? She couldn't. Maggie, gifted and talented Maggie, felt defeat. Her teacher's a little tricky. Maggie was not interested in cursive at all. She was defying ever learning how to do it. And then she suddenly became interested when she couldn't read the note that was about her. Maybe, just maybe, the teacher knew she'd look at the note if she left the envelope unsealed. And maybe the teacher was counting on it to give her a little motivation to learn how to read and write cursive. We'll have to see if I'm right. What predictions do you have? I hope you make some great ones, and I'm sure you will. Have a wonderful day, and we'll read some more chapters coming up later. Thanks, everybody.